Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. So you can see from the oldie lady here, we're going to be taking the Wood Elves up against the Lizard Men today. So it's definitely a fun matchup of two high-tier factions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the army compositions. I've got the Glady, of course, with just the Prey of Anathrema up on a horse for some additional mobility. Up in front, we've got some Sisters of Thorn, currently in a skirmish with some Chameleon Skinks. We've got the Shield of Thorns, of course. We're going to be dropping that Curse of Rare as well to help catch these Chameleon Skinks. In terms of the rest of the army, we've got one unit of Way Watchers, 4 Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts, 2 War Dancers with Azrai Spear, 2 Sword War Dancers, and 4 Eternal Guards, no shields, to help get some extra money. That's pretty much it for my build. For my opponent's build, he's got 3 Chameleon Skinks, 4 Saurus Warriors with shields, 2 Saurus Spears with shields. Very cool stuff. We've also got 1 unit of Temple Guard, Mazdamundi up on his palanquin here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the spell loadout. We've got Nets of Amantok, Harmonic Convergence, Curse of the Midnight Wind, and Apotheosis. All very solid spell selection, and of course he's also got his area of effect damage spells, Ruination of Cities, and Banishment. So very fun stuff. We'll go ahead and take a look at the rest of the army here. We've got a Skink Chief, and I think that's pretty much it. Looks like we've got some Feral Cold Ones hidden in the woods over there. So yeah, without further ado, let's kick the battle into full gear. You can see the slowest charge you've ever seen the Sisters of Thorn actually get. We're going to get in here, do a little bit of damage, not as much as I would have hoped, but between the poison, Curse of Rare, we're able to slow down those Chameleon Skinks enough to catch them. They also have their melee attack debuffed, so they're not going to be making the best contact, but considering there's more Chameleon Skinks and this Skink Chief as well on the way, I figured it was best to get the heck out of there with these sisters, so we're going to do just that. Meanwhile, the rest of my force is a little bit hidden up here in the woods. Pretty much everything is hidden, so my opponent's not really sure what to expect. We're trying to draw out this skirmish phase and potentially draw. You can see these kind of overlapping lines of fire here. We're going to try and draw a unit, into this space here. Potentially high value units, especially like the Skink Chief or Mazdamundi here. You can see a little bit of mistargeting. I didn't realize these guys were still set to fire at will. You definitely always want to have these guys on manual fire so they're not wasting their shots on not worthwhile units. We're going to get a nice volley here. One thing about the Skink Chief, though, is when he gets staggered from missile fire, he tends to move around a lot. That means the other shots may not always connect the best, and so we did waste a little bit of ammo there and use of the Prey of Anathrema without really getting too much value out of it, but at the end of the day it should be alright. You can see the Glady is still losing her shots, and man, she actually has like homing arrows. That's super cool. I never noticed that. But anyway, over here on the side you can see these Feral Cold Ones doing a little bit of scouting as well. So because they're relatively armored unit at 90 armor, we're going to immediately switch all the Starfire Shafts to firing at them, or perhaps at this Skink Chief as well, who's taken quite a bit of damage from that Glady so far. Chameleon Skinks have also taken quite a bit of damage, but at the same time as have the Sisters. These Way Watchers, we're just trying to kind of keep them out of range here, and so they don't take too much fire from these Chameleon Skinks, because they will, they won't trade effectively there. They don't have any active mitigation or passive mitigation against missile fire. Only 15 armor, and the Chameleon Skinks do have a missile resistance and 15 armor, or 30 armor, excuse me. Granted, obviously the Way Watchers do armor piercing, but that 40% missile resistance will definitely play into it there. You can see the Lizardmen forces just advancing up across the line here. The inexorable slow advance up the hill. A little bit overzealous with these Glade Guards here, but we're just going to start unloading everyone into Mazdamundi since he's walking through this kind of multiple zone of fire here. And my opponent drops Shield of the Old Ones. Not sure if he remembers that the magical damage has actually been removed from Starfire Shafts. They used to do magic damage, they no longer do, so this the Shield of the Old Ones, I mean, it will mitigate the Glady's missile fire because she does magic missile damage, but it will not mitigate the other missile fire, from the Starfire Shafts and so on. Many people don't remember that that's the case, but nice banishment going to be coming down from my opponent right on top of these Sword Dancers, and let's see where it goes. Unfortunately, it kind of just went off back behind, and might actually get some contact on these archers here. Ruination of Cities as well. and it looks like, oh man, bad luck, all three of them, a clean miss. So that's a little bit of the RNG of Ruination of Cities. It kind of just went almost exactly this way and missed my units completely. If it had gone like this, or you know, had gone off in maybe like this direction, that could have been devastating for me. So I definitely lucked out in that respect. You can see the bounce power starting to shift more and more in our favor as Mazdamundi is taking an absurd amount of missile fire here from the Starfire shafts. In the main line engagement, I mean, obviously Saurus Warriors will beat the brakes off of pretty much everything here except the Sword Dancers. Sword Dancers, even then, will trade very atritiously there. They cost about the same, so I'm not sure, you know, in terms of cost effectiveness. I would need to test them one-on-one, which I've been meaning to do. But yeah, very cool cinematic action as these Saurus Warriors slug it out in the woods here with the Wood Elves. We got a Branch Wraith I failed to mention for the caster. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring the Pendulum, which would have been very useful in this situation with these nice clean lines of you know, Lizardmen infantry. But Mazdamundi has rallied. We've got the Way Watchers and all the Starfire shafts focused on him though, so as soon as he comes into this pocket, he's just going to start to take an immense amount of damage. And again, shieldly the old ones being used reflexively there. Previously, this would have been a very nice play to help mitigate the missile fire of the Lizardmen. Unfortunately though, a lot of them don't do magic damage anymore, as I said before, so you can see a lot of the Saurus infantry getting routed though. The War Dancers were definitely able to come in and do a lot of damage there. We got a nice little rear charge with the Sisters of Thorn too before they routed off once again. So yeah, you can see Melkos Mystifying Miasma also being dropped on some of these Saurus Spears as well, and Mazdamundi does go down there. And with that, a lot of these Lizardmen infantry are going to start to chain route here, and once the route gets more and more contagious, even these high leadership units like these Temple Guard here that are fighting in this pocket are going to start to route away. We've got a nice Earthblood there from the Branch Wraith, and we're also focusing pretty heavily now on the Skink Chief with all the missile fire. So last Prey of Anathrema drop there, and that should be enough to finish off. Once this Skink Chief's leadership goes down, that's pretty much going to be the leadership of the rest of the army. So with that, army losses is going to trigger, and it will be a victory for the Wood Elves. I definitely think that Wood Elves have somewhat of an advantage, although the Lizardmen can bring builds that will give the Wood Elves fits, and we'll talk about a little bit of that in just a moment here. But well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that. In terms of the army breakdown here, you can see my Sword Dancers did very well against the Saurus infantry, 75 and 63. And obviously the missile units didn't get a lot of kills, but they focused down the high value target, which was Lord Mazdamundi himself. And yeah, overall did very well. Glady wasn't really threatened too much. The front line definitely took some heavy damage there, but the favorable terrain and you know, the overwhelming missile fire definitely played to our advantage. The Sisters of Thorn ended up getting 41 kills and got some nice work done despite taking some early damage. So for my opponent, Mazdamundi, I do like him quite a bit in this matchup, but not on Slock because it makes him a much bigger target. And we'll go ahead and touch on a couple other things about Mazdamundi himself in just a moment. Saurus Warriors, definitely a solid pick in this matchup. I'm not the biggest fan of Saurus Spears. I think if you were to cut these down, you know, let's actually just jump straight to it. So, yeah. In terms of the Lizardmen up against the Wood Elves, it can be tricky because you don't... I mean, your instinct is to bring dinos with the Lizardmen, right? But against the Wood Elves, they just have this overwhelming armor-piercing missile fire. You really don't want to take, what's it called? Big dinos against them in any situation, I don't think. So let's go ahead and just take a look. So the issue with Tzlok is he's pretty slow. I mean, 50 speed is not bad, but it's not great, and he's a pretty big target. Mazdamundi as well on his seat here has 40% missile resistance, whereas on Tzlok he only has 15%. So if you take him on the toilet seat, he's actually more resistant to missiles. In addition, you can also take this Sunburst Standard of Hexawaddle, which gives him an additional 12% missile resistance, so it can make it very tanky against enemy missile fire. I would say you could probably drop Curse the Midnight Wind in this matchup because of the nature of the Wood Elves. They're not going to have much armor. Melee attack debuff is nice, but I would say stick with Harmonic Convergence, Apotheosis, and Nets. You could probably cut Roiling Skies. I don't know. It's hard to say. You may expect some flying units in this matchup, but typically I'll probably cut that just because it's not the greatest lore attribute in the world. It's very situational. And then from there, something like this, you know, having a Skink Chief may not be bad, but let's just put him on foot. And you know what, while we're at it, We can go ahead and grab another one on foot just for the cold-blooded, and they also do the nice missile fire as well. Definitely agree with the pick of the Saurus warriors with shields. You want those shields to mitigate missile fire. And then I'll also come in here and grab, let's see what else. So these skink cohorts with javelins are going to be pretty solid in this matchup. They have 3 volleys with 120 unit models of poison javelins, so they can do a lot of damage to low armor units, and then they'll trade relatively cost effectively with some of the other Wood Elf infantry. I mean, obviously they don't have the stats to stand up to something like War Dancers, but they give you extra unit models to throw in there to continue to try and do damage that way. The chameleon skinks are definitely a good idea in this matchup, so we could go ahead and juice up on them. We could even go ahead and grab a couple of Temple Guard here just to round things out to give you that nice anti-large. They have shields as well, and they're just overall very sturdy infantry, so something more like this with just no dinos whatsoever, almost an entire infantry rush almost. Lizardmen I think would be a little bit better against what I had brought there, that overwhelming missile fire. I mean, obviously this would be a little bit more vulnerable to something like a Wild Rider build or a heavy War Dancer build, but typically you're going to see the very heavy missile fire up against Lizardmen, you know, when you're playing the Wood Elves. So I would definitely recommend you go dino free with all infantry and maybe bring Mazdamundi on the toilet seat. You could also make an argument for somebody like Krokar. I guess Krokar doesn't have a missile block chance, so even like the Saurus Old Blood here, you can cheap him out real good, cut all of his abilities here. You may want Foe Seeker. Stand your ground may not be bad either, but let's just say for the sake of argument you cut everything just to get him as cheap as possible. Then we'll cut the other Skink Chief and grab a Caster here. I would definitely say Heavens can be very, very good in this matchup. Obviously the Wind Blast is going to be very good against low armor Wood Elf units, which is pretty much all of them. Harmonic Convergence is good in almost any situation, so you can grab those two and just continuously spam them for relatively cheap. And you can keep the Skink Priest on the ground. It's a little bit more of a risk to bring him on the Pterodon because he's a bigger target, but it does make him much faster, so it's a little bit of a trade-off there. But if we go ahead and bring him on the ground here, we still have got another 800 points to spend, so you know, you can do a lot of different things with that. You could grab maybe some Feral Cold Ones to give you some extra mobility, some more Skink Skirmishers or Chameleon Skinks, another Saurus Warrior, you know, more Skink Cohorts. There's a lot you could do with that, but something like this would also be pretty solid, I think, against the Wood Elves as well. I mean, the Saurus Old Blood's a pretty strong character in his own right. He's got the missile block chance, and on the ground, he's going to be a relatively small target as well. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below about this particular matchup. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. And we'll see you next time.